Ready to inspire your team? Meet their professional development needs with anytime, anywhere access to a custom digital library from Overdrive. Drive performance, engagement, and culture with Overdrive. Learn more at company.overdrive.com/corporate-libraries. And visit Overdrive's booth at the ATD conference in May for your free gift.
Welcome to the Accidental Trainer, a podcast where you'll hear firsthand stories and tips on how to start and grow your training career.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of ATD Accidental Trainer podcast. I'm your host, Alexandria Clapp, and today we have with us Katy Chandler. Katy is the VP of Talent Management at DuraServ. Hi, Katy.
Hi. Glad to be here.
Thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited to chat with you. You are a ATD forum member and have always wanted to learn a little bit more about the work that you're doing. And when you mentioned that you had this cool internal credentialing program project that you've been working on, I thought it would be amazing for our ATD community to hear more about it. We will talk about that in a moment, but first let's chat a little bit about you and your career. Can you tell us how you landed in your current role and anything accidental along the way?
So that question does make me laugh because I feel like everything in my career has been accidental. So absolutely, 100%. And going back to, I got my undergraduate degree in studio art and psychology, and I have impeccable timing with my degrees. I graduated in December of 2001, which I know puts an age on the map there. That's fine. That was impeccable timing because it was right after 9/11 and nobody was hiring. And so in my career, I kind of had that wake up call moment where I realized that I needed a job and I just needed a job and something that would work for now. And then we could start thinking about chasing dreams later. So I joined a company called DuraServ, and I've been there for 22 years now. So it's been quite the career throughout that time. I went through multiple departments from operations to contracts and collections. In 2019, I was presented with the opportunity to launch our first learning and development department. So that really launched me into something that I felt brought together a lot of my skill set, gave me the opportunity to really explore this whole new arena of talent development, which I just love. So it was very exciting to see and really completely accidental the way that I fell into this field.
Wow, I didn't know that. Oh, that's fun. So you have a lot of experience in all sorts of different departments and realms, which I'm sure comes in handy with just being able to chat with and understand all of your fellow people.
I definitely know the people. I definitely know the industry, the market, the people within the organization. That's definitely an advantage.
And before we jump into just talking about some of the work that you've been doing, maybe you can tell us a little about the frontline population you serve, your industry, because I think I was a little confused at first. And
Sure.
For anyone else who may be curious like me, I think that'll be a good way to start the conversation. Plus, I know you're just very passionate about frontline. So tell us a little bit about the people that you serve.
Sure. So first, DuraServ is in the commercial doors and dock equipment space, and that is a complete niche market. I know there's got to be lots of other niche markets out there, but this is an industrial space. It's an area you probably haven't thought about unless you happen to work in an analogous industry, but it's everything in the back receiving side of a warehouse. So the doors, the dock equipment, where the trucks back into the building, that is the equipment that we sell, service, and install. And the frontline workers that we deal with are our field service technicians. And those are individuals who are professionals, go to a customer site and physically work on the equipment at the customer's building. That component of our business is about half of our workforce. And it's a very, very important part of our workforce because it is the work that we're selling. The work that they do is the work that we sell. So it's really pivotal that we get the training of those individuals right and that we can hire those individuals, retain them, upskill them, really offer them a career so that we can be successful as a business and also provide opportunities to those individuals.
Well, I was wondering how high stakes is it, I guess, training wise, and high stakes definitely in the sense that it's your whole business model relies on those folks. But then in terms of them actually doing their job correctly and successfully and safely, I'm sure more
Absolutely.
high stakes than some other types of professions out there.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, let's just jump in and talk about this. Katy, can you tell us how this internal credentialing program that you've been working on came about?
First off, I would say no one at our organization would refer to this as an internal credentialing program. So for those of us in the L&D space, certainly we can use that language to refer to it. But internally, I think the way that this first came about is really in recognizing the need for training people in this industry quickly and using that as a tool to recruit people and to retain people into our industry. That really can be the bottleneck to growth if we don't have enough people who can do that work. Another unique challenge about our industry is that we are decentralized and that the workers that we're talking about here are field service workers. So not only are they spread across the country in 35 different base locations, but then from those locations, they are out driving to see customer sites every day. So they're not sitting in front of a computer. There isn't an efficient way to just mass train them. We had to come up with some program that would incorporate on-the-job training along with some more formalized training, and really tried to work in our thought process behind the scenes from an L&D standpoint, tried to work in the 70-20-10 model into how we built out the program design. So the whole program started from a business needs standpoint. This wasn't pie in the sky idea from learning and development. It started with a problem that the business is looking at, and how can we get people upskilled quicker? We recognize that in a lot of the industrial industries, when you look around, it's hard to recruit people into industries and careers like that, especially if they can't see a career path ahead of them. It looks more like a stopover sort of role. And we don't want that. We want that to be a place where people can really see a future and see that they have opportunity to grow and develop. So prior to our development of this program, there really wasn't a way to show anyone what their career path could look like. And there wasn't really a standardized way to train people. In our industry, there is not a industry standard for training individuals in dock and doors. There may be training from a particular manufacturer about their product, but there is not an overarching certification like you would find with a certified plumbing, certified electrician, certified welders. Those things have standards in their industry, whereas ours did not. So we recognized that there was a need to create something like that. And that's how this program was originally born, in terms of the idea was really addressing that need.
So many things that you said there. If there's no industry standard for what training might look like, then what did that actually look like from field service technician to field service technician? How they came about, what they knew? There was probably all sorts of gaps, like even just like starting this process and collecting these observations and realizing and being able to pinpoint that this is a business need. Like, how did that come about?
Actually, if I can go back, it's been probably 10, 15 years, but I remember there was a company that we have grown in some ways by acquisition, and we acquired a company. And when we were talking with the business owner about the workforce, I remember he made a kind of just a side comment about one of his individuals that he said was basically in a helper position, which is what they call like an apprentice or someone who would be working alongside another service technician. So he referred to this person and he said, well, he's really been doing a great job. He's been here about 6 years and he's almost ready to go into his own vehicle and do work on his own. And I remember, this was a long time ago, right? This is 10, 15 years ago. But I remember at that time thinking, this is not sustainable. Like, this is the way that the industry is going. And just ride along with Wade or ride along with Bill, and you'll just kind of over time, you'll pick it up. That may be true, but it's not sustainable in a growing market. And we can't rely on people just riding with others to pick up on things along the way. And it's certainly not a way to do anything standardized if you want things to be consistent across the organization. So it presents a lot of problems to sort of rely on that learning by osmosis method.
Okay, I have so many questions. I'm wondering where to go. You talked about this being a way to recruit and retain new talent into your industry. So identifying new drivers in the first place, which then leads me to, okay, so you're creating this training program. There's going to be things that you do need to be in truck with another driver. And how did you go about standardizing it and defining what doesn't need to happen for over 6 years?
So really where we started was with addressing the apprentices at the front end of their career. We realized that's the biggest kind of bang for our buck is starting at the beginning. So that's what we did. We started with what should people be doing in their first 90 days? Sort of our round one of this program, we identified on paper a list of things that should be done within their first 90 days. So that was through a number of things. We used our LMS, our learning management system, for some more standardized courses on safety topics or the basic introduction to some of the products that we work on. And then there were additional items that they needed to participate in or demonstrate competency in different areas. But that checklist was really our starting point. And we turned that into a little book that the technicians could carry around and get sign-offs on their book. And that worked for what it was. And it was certainly better than what we had. But then at some point, we sort of realized that we needed to make this a bit more flexible and add some technology behind it. We knew that was coming, but we still started with the paper just to get something out there to know that we were working into the right direction. So in 2023, we introduced an app to help support the back end of the functionality of the program. And that gave our technicians better visibility. It also gave their frontline manager better visibility of how things were progressing with each individual. And we expanded it to cover all levels, not just the apprenticeship, but really to give a better career pathing for people later in their careers to know that they have the ability to step up. So we would call those from apprentice to a Tech 1 or a Tech 2, Tech 3. We're building it out for people at all levels in their career. And that really, to your point about recruiting, gives us the opportunity to show people who are interested in potentially joining the industry and joining our organization. It gives them a path. It gives them some way to see that it's not just an apprenticeship and then it's over and then you just do that the rest of your life. You have some opportunity to move forward and continue advancing your career and learning new things.
Yeah, because you're not always going to catch people at the apprenticeship level, I'd imagine. Or
Right. So we had to think about how can you pull people into the program and have some sort of assessment process to slot them in at the right level and then allow them to grow from there. Good opportunity to do recruiting at trade schools that are kind of analogous to our business. So, for example, we work with trade schools that do welding programs because that skill set could play into our industry. So it could be a pathway for people. And in other places where people have a technical aptitude, but again, there's no outside certification, but we can target people in those areas to really try to present our opportunities to them.
I love that, the transferable skill thing. People who might not even realize that this could be a potential career path. You've done the work of sort of defining, well, we actually see some of the skill sets you have. So this could be a potential new option or opportunity for you. That's really cool. But I know that it wasn't all sunshine and roses. I'm sure lots of challenges. So I want to dig into that a little bit. I just had a laundry list of what were pain points, challenges, where did you have to iterate, or what was hindsight 2020 realized after oh gosh. And even when you were talking about how you start off with a checklist knowing we'll have to come back and add technology later, but this is good for now. I think some of those growing pains, those steps along the way can feel a little painful because this is good for right now. This won't be the end all be all, but this is where we need to be for now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just keeping clear guardrails on the scope of the project and what we're trying to do at each juncture is probably what kind of helped us get over some of those initial hurdles. But we did, one of the biggest iterations that we had was looking at how we could make our program more flexible. And without going into all the detail, one of the things that we recognized was that things in the skill sets that we had identified at each level, it may not have given enough flexibility for the individuals who might have exposure to different products in different markets. And that was important. So we needed to kind of go back to the drawing board and find ways to make our program a bit more flexible so that people could see that they were making progress and not feel like they got stuck at a certain level. Looking back at those and really trying to be open-minded about how can we make this serve our purpose for consistency while still balancing people seeing that they have the opportunity to continue to make progress, because that's important for buy-in.
This reminded me of a project that I worked on at an old organization when we were updating our app with features that folks could log their sessions and describe the types of activities that they're doing. And we went from having bare bones nothing, basically like a text field, to all sorts of different options. But then, of course, in the process of doing that, then people were like, oh, why didn't you add in this type of modification or this exercise that I do? And there was just, it felt like a little bit of scope creep to try to accommodate for all of these different types of options, but maybe they're not necessarily always common.
We certainly have our wish list of things where we do residential service in a number of markets, and that is a growing part of our business, but we had to keep coming back to the vast majority of what we're doing and trying to be working on and really focusing on is the commercial side of our business. So we're going to set residential aside for a moment while we focus on this. And then things like language translations or other products that may be a bit more obscure, we just had to set those aside very consciously and say, that is a great idea. I'm really glad. It's a vote of confidence to hear that people are supportive of the idea and that they want to see more. That is a vote of confidence. You kind of have to remind yourself of that. But at the end of the day, if you try to do everything, you aren't going to be as successful as you really stay pinpointed on the thing that you know is going to make the biggest difference, and then add in layers of other things that can be done later.
Some of that messaging, how you communicate back to the stakeholders and say, yes, we appreciate that. That is something that we want to do for the next round, but not yet, can be a hard but necessary conversation to have.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah. I think really around anything like this, I mean, it's a change management initiative at the end of the day, and gaining that buy-in and having an open line of communication is so important to really getting the support, not only from stakeholders above you who are supporting it with resources and investments, but also with the stakeholders who are going to be the end users of whatever that program or product is. It needs to make sense to them. It needs to be easy for them. And I am super passionate about that. Things have to be easy for people. If you're asking them to change, you have to make it so easy and so intuitive that you shouldn't have to take a 2-day training program on how to use our app. Like, it shouldn't require that. It should be so easy that you would just naturally know what to do next.
Speaking of end users, I love that example. Let's say that you have someone who, again, I'm thinking that this will probably apply to other folks, even in other industries or contexts, but where they might roll out something similar, where suddenly it's a change. You've been there for a while, you feel like you have experience, and all of a sudden, this new standardized process reveals that you have gaps. And you don't have all of the things. And just because you have many, many years or whatever it is, how do you tackle that without making them disgruntled and disliking you?
Yeah, that's a great observation, Alexandria, but that could happen. And it did. I think by and large, one of the easiest ways to approach that is, number one, focus on the areas where you are making a difference and where people are willing and open to learning, which in our case was those that were earlier in their career. So we spent a lot of time really working on that apprenticeship and the frontline part of the program, that opening part. The second thing is, with those who have more experience and tenure, which hopefully would translate to more skills, but not always, that group can then be very helpful in terms of how do we help get others up to speed. In our case, we could really kind of try to tap into that group and say, it's important for us to know that we're getting the next group of people. The next wave is going to be as good as you, that we have you on board to help support all of these newer folks who are joining the organization. How do we get them trained, and how can you help us get better. So even your feedback on some of this would be helpful. And inviting that participation in the process really worked with quite a few of them to say, okay, I feel like I'm acknowledged for the background and learning that I already have. I get credit for that, if you will. But also it's part of that change management of kind of saying, you're a part of this too, and helping us as a company. How could we grow without hiring? We need to be hiring, we need to be growing, and getting your knowledge helps us do that. How can you help us train the next group?
In terms of rewards or incentives or what else we want to call it, compensation maybe, was that a part of the process as well?
So we tried to keep it sort of, compensation is really separate from this in terms of the way that we structured it. The way I look at it is the training and the learning that you've done is certainly an important data point in your performance review, but it's not the only data point. There could be a lot of other factors that go into that whole performance discussion, which in turn drives the compensation discussion. So we really tried to keep that very much a separate discussion. In doing that, we knew that we needed to have ways to celebrate and recognize those who are making progress in the program. So we really worked on how can we celebrate that internally. We have Viva Engage or our intranet or other places where we can celebrate internally those people who are making progress in the program. And it gives a little bit of FOMO or peer pressure to the others. And going back to your point on some of the more tenured individuals who see others making progress, it's sometimes a bit of a motivator. And it also helps those who are getting recognized feel like this is something that's worthwhile. So we have a number of ways that we do that. We recognize that and promote it through various events and other little acknowledgements. We physically send them acknowledgements so that they can see the progress of their work and they get recognized in front of their peers. So it means something.
And would mean something if someone outside of DuraServ as well, outside of your organization, that they have some type of...
I think that would be so cool if something that we've built internally for our own growth at one point meant something outside of our organization. Not that I would ever want someone, one of our employees interviewing with a competitor, but how cool would it be if someone said, well, wow, that person is a DuraServ technician too. And that meant something outside of the walls of DuraServ. That would be a pretty big vote of confidence, I think, in our program.
I was thinking of a conversation I had with one of my husband's cousins who's in a kind of trade school program right now. And I'm not looking to shift my career, but just hearing him describe the rigor of the program and the work that he's doing, it sounds very impressive. It's cool for him to talk about. And it does seem like he's proud because, like you're describing, there are these different levels and you can't achieve a certain level or until you've done all of these different requirements. So again, just like reiterating in a different way that whether or not you're looking to take on a new role or just have sort of that acknowledgement of the type of work that you've done to get to that place in your career, in the work that you're doing. It's cool. So I have all sorts of questions for you that for folks who are listening, I'm always putting myself in their shoes. I'm wondering if they're wondering these things. What was most rewarding for you in working on creating this program?
I think seeing how people got excited about it, seeing technicians who were engaged in the program and that it's working and we're seeing people progress through the program, advance their skill set and move forward. We're seeing people who are joining the organization with no experience and being able to get them out into the field doing work in such a shorter time frame is just a huge benefit to the company. Just looking ahead, I think we've got even more opportunity to promote the program to potential hires, to add more recognition and to really expand the top end of the program where we plan to put Master Tech designation as something that we're working on this year to really capstone the whole program and build in really that long-term career recognition with that Master Tech status. So there's so many opportunities to just see how this frontline group can really take this as a career opportunity. I think it's just really special to watch that come to reality.
It's cool to hear you describe it because it sounds like it's never quite done yet. There's constantly evolving and new iterations of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I could see in the future if there's new products or new processes that we need to train our people in, it could slide into this technology and allow us to still have that same infrastructure in place, but apply different skills within it.
What kind of advice might you have for an L&D peer who's listening, who is motivated to try something similar in their organization?
I think one of the big things on the front end is making sure that you're solving a business problem and in such that you've got buy-in from stakeholders at the front end, certainly the stakeholders above you. So if you have the goals that are addressing the business problem, then you're going to get that buy-in. That's really important. It may seem obvious, but use all the resources that you can. If there's any opportunity to tap into internal resources or external resources who might be able to help with the content creation piece or just building together what that hierarchy of different skills are, defining that, spending a lot of time on that is going to be really important to save you some time later on down the road. And then the last piece that I would say is really considering the promotion and messaging around it. It goes back to a little bit of that change management, but thinking about your audience, your end user, what is that persona like? What language is going to make sense to them? How can you communicate it to them to get them excited about the program and get, those promotions, those recognitions, any ways that you can continue to get that engagement is really going to circle back, hopefully, to your ultimate goals and the people that are investing, the stakeholders at the top end who are investing resources and or money into the program. You want to make sure that you can circle back to that and show that the program is working. So that promotion and continual recognition really helps keep that momentum going.
Any lesson learned that you knew once you were doing it of, oh, I wish we had done this earlier in the beginning. Hindsight is 2020. I would recommend don't get caught up doing this.
I think there were some lessons learned in the way that we built out some of the infrastructure. It might be a bit granular, but just really trying to think through how we structured the program design in a way that would be modular so that we could apply the technology to it better. So that may sound a little bit abstract, but just trying to think further down the line in terms of if we make it this way, how is the technology going to work? So certainly involving all the right stakeholders, just to call it out, that's going to mean IT, that's going to mean marketing, that's going to mean operations. There's going to be multiple people and using all of those internal resources to get input on how you can make it most successful. The earlier, the better that you have all those people involved. And then you can kind of go away and do your own planning and come back and get input. But certainly involving those stakeholders is going to be really pivotal.
I feel like I could keep asking questions like, did you have a pilot program or a pilot market, or did it start small? I mean, I know you had the different iterations where it was like checklist and then book, and then you use an app, but did you also start with just a small population of the overall mission?
We rolled out in stages. So we had a pretty accelerated timeline for our go live, but we did start with a few of our divisions. So we have about 35 locations across the country. And we started with a couple that were more local to me. So I could physically go and meet with the technicians face to face and see, what are you encountering? What's working? If anything's not working, how can we fix it? And try to iterate that before we roll it out to the next group. And then I know my audience. So really, I knew that I needed to be hands-on on this. So there were a lot of times where technicians start their day early. So I might be up at 5 a.m. my time on a Zoom call going, okay, let's get all of them in a room and we're going to be on a Zoom call together. I'm going to walk you through it. Everybody pull out your phone. Let's do it together. Let's walk through it. Tell me what you're seeing. If we have any issues, we'll document them and get them fixed. But that hands-on approach, maybe it wasn't necessary, but I think it really was part of the success, is really knowing that there were faces behind this. There were people who cared about it. Just showing that, I think showing up for that really made a difference.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, glad I asked. I know we could keep on chatting about this for a while, but we'll switch gears for now, switch back over to you. Can you tell us what your current learning goals are these days?
I mean, ultimately, my learning goal is to keep learning. I've got a number of things that this year on my list. I want to read more books. So I've got a goal to read 12 books this year and a few online certifications that I want to do. Got a couple in progress right now. And then I'm learning more about the talent management space, since that's a relatively recent change for me, kind of beyond learning and development, but rolling into talent management as a whole. So those last two kind of go hand in hand, learning more about that. It's so important to keep yourself in your learner's shoes, to keep being a lifelong learner yourself, taking courses and just dealing with all of that firsthand. It helps to kind of have some empathy for your ultimate end user.
How do you stick with it? How do you keep yourself accountable or motivated to keep putting yourself in that learner position, which is an uncomfortable position to be in?
It is. Yes, it can be. And I think for me, trying to make it easy for myself. So if there are ways that I can do some of this in time blocks that might not have been used otherwise. So if I've got a long drive time, then I make sure that I've got audiobooks pre-downloaded so I'm ready to go and I can double down on that time. I also do time blocking on my calendar so that I can have time for online courses or other things. And I usually do that on a Friday afternoon or sometime that I know I'm just going to be not there for much else. I need to just kind of put aside the other things and maybe take a moment to learn something myself.
Handy advice. And how can folks keep in touch with your activity? I know you'd mentioned before, if someone who is listening does have a granular question because they are rolling this out, they be able to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to talk more with anyone who would like that. I'm on LinkedIn, so welcome to reach out to me there. I will also be at the ATD conference. I assume this airs before that, but maybe not. So
yeah, it does.
It's there in a couple of weeks. I will be there as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Katy. It was so fun and congratulations. Hope you have taken a moment to celebrate all of the progress that you've been making on this project with peers inside your organization, outside, and hopefully folks listening are celebrating with you because it sounds really cool.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you to our sponsor, Overdrive.
Thanks for listening to this podcast from the Association for Talent Development. Be sure to check the show notes for resources mentioned in today's episode. And if you found the show useful or insightful, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with a colleague.